So in the last video, we went ahead and did the newsletter area. We also did these boxes. Now we're going to move on to the About and the Why section. And this is going to include an Accordion widget as well. So let's go back to our HTML. We'll go down to the bottom under our last section. And I'm just going to put a comment that says the About/Why section. And it's going to be a section tag with an ID of About. And let's give it a class of py5, padding on the top and bottom. Let's do text center, so everything is centered. And let's give it a background, a light background, so BG light. And then inside here we want a container. You can see that the sections are pretty much all structured the same. We just have the main section tag, then we have the container, then we have the row, and then whatever columns we want. This is going to be just a full column, so I'm just going to use a call class. And then in here, let's put the info header. So just to show you what that is, that's going to be this area here, the info header. So let's do, we'll do a div with the class of info-header. And let's also do an MB, a margin bottom 5, just to push everything underneath it down. And inside this header, we'll have an H1. Let's give it a class of text-primary, which will make it that bluish tealish color. I'm also going to give it a class of PB, so padding bottom 3. And then this is just going to say, why this book? And then underneath the H1, we'll have a paragraph with the class of lead and a class of padding bottom 3. And let's just put in lorem 15 tab, put some text in there. So if we were to look at that, it should look like this. All right, so I want this to look a little different. I don't want it to go basically all the way across like this, like all the way over here. I want to kind of only have it come to about here. And I also want to put a border on the bottom. So before I forget to do that, let's go to our CSS, our Sass. And let's add under the showcase, we'll say info-header. And let's set the width of the entire thing to 50%. And then we want it to be in the middle, so let's say margin auto. And then I'm also going to do a border bottom. And for the border, let's do 1 pixel. Let's do a light gray. We'll do DDD, and then solid. And let's save that. All right, so let's go back, and there we go. So I think that looks a little cleaner. So back to the HTML. Now we want to go underneath the info header. So that ends right here. So we want to go right underneath, and this is where we're going to put our accordion. So let's put a div here. Now remember, it's going to have an ID of accordion because that's going to be the parent. And then we also want to add on to, actually no, that's it. So just accordion as an ID. And then we want our first, basically our first part, which is going to be a card. So we want the class of card. And then inside here we want a class of card header. And let's put, well, that should be good. So card header. And in here we're going to have an H5, and I'm going to give it a class of MB0 to take away the margin. And then inside the H5, I'm actually going to use a div here with an href, and we can do that. We want to reference the whatever we want to open. Okay, so the collapsible content. So for href, I'm going to set it to #collapse1, and we also want to add a data-toggle. And set that to collapse. And then when since we're using an accordion, it needs to have a data parent. So for data parent, we're going to put the accordion ID like that. And then within this div, I'm going to say get inspired, but I also want an icon in front of it. So I'm going to use font awesome. I'm going to say give it a class of FAS. In a class of FA-arrow-circle dash down. So it'll be an arrow that points down. Now we want to go underneath the card header, still within the card, but under the card header, which ends right here, and we want to put our collapse ID. So let's say ID collapse 1, and we also want to put a class of collapse, and then a class of show, because I want this one to show automatically by default. Now inside here we want some padding, so we want to put our card body class. And then this is where we put our content. So I'm just going to say lorem 50 tab and just generate a bunch of dummy text. So that's pretty much it for the first one. So now I'm going to copy the entire card, which ends right here, still within the accordion. And let's go down here and paste that in and just change a couple things. So we want to change this href to collapse 2 and this ID to collapse 2. I'm also going to change this right here to gain the knowledge. And what else? We don't want the show because we only want the first one to show by default. So that looks good. Now we'll copy this card again, the second one we just did, and we'll put in one more and change this to collapse 3 as well as this. And then here let's say open your mind. And we'll save. So now if we look, we have a little accordion. Click on it, so that looks good. Awesome. So I think that's a good place to stop. In the next video, we're going to start on the authors section. So the authors will be like, let me just show you real quick. The authors will be these right here. We'll have these images. We're going to move them up out of the box a little bit, out of the card. And we'll be able to also hover over them. They'll also have some social media links. So we will get to that next. All right, guys, in this video, we're going to add the authors section with the images and so on. I can actually close that tab up. So let's go to our text editor. And we want to go below the last section, which was the about section. And I'm going to put a comment in here that says authors. And we want to add a section with an ID of authors. Okay, I'm also going to add a margin class. So we want my, so margin on the top and bottom. We'll do 5. And then let's also align everything, all the text to the center. And then we'll have a container. So typical structure, we'll have our row. We'll have a full column. And we're also going to have an info header here, okay, just like we did above. So let's do a div with the class of info-header. And we also want a class here of MB5 to kind of move everything down. And then we'll have an H1 with the class of text primary to give it that color. And PB, padding bottom 3. So same exact stuff we did above with that info header. And we're going to say meet the authors. And then underneath the H1, we'll have a paragraph with the class of lead. And let's do lorem 15 tab. And now we want to go underneath the, let's see, we want to go underneath the row because we're going to add a new row here with the authors. So let's say row. And then each author will be for large screens and up, we want it to be a 3 column, but for medium screens, we want it to be 2 columns, okay, or two 6 column divs. So we're going to add 2 classes to this. So let's say call LG, then we want 3. We want it to stretch 3. If it's medium, call MD, we want it to only take up 2 6 column divs. Okay, so either 4 3 column divs for large or 2 6 column divs. Okay, it's always going to equal 12. And then in here, let's add a card. Then we want a card body. Inside here, we want our image of our person. So I'm going to say image. We're going to give this a class of image dash fluid. I also want it to be rounded, so rounded circle will do that for us. And I'm also going to give it a width of 50. Remember the width classes? We're going to say W-50 and then a margin bottom of 3. Okay, and then the image source will be image/person1.jpg. And then underneath the image, we're going to put an H3 with the person's name. So we're going to say Susan Williams. And then let's do an H5. Whoops. Underneath, we want to do an H5. Actually, let's give that a class of text muted. And this is basically her position, so she's the lead writer. Underneath that, we'll put a paragraph. This is just some basic description stuff. We'll say lorem 10. Actually, let's do lorem 15. All right, and then under that is where we want to do the social media icons. Oops. And for the social media icons, I want to use flexbox because I want them to line up horizontally. And I also want to add some padding and stuff and justify it. So let's do a class of dflex. And inside dflex, let's add, actually one thing I want to do is I want to justify everything. So we're going to add to this justify dash content, and we want it to the center. Okay, and then in here, what we'll do is have 3 divs, and I want padding 4 on all of them. So let's say p-4 times 3 tab. In this first one, let's put an A tag. Actually, we don't need any class or anything. It's just going to be an A tag. And we can say that this is going to go to http facebook.com. All right, and in this link is where we want to put the icons. So it's going to be font awesome fas.fa-facebook. And that's it. So for these other ones here, what I'll do is copy this A tag. Let's put the next one in. So this will be Twitter. And obviously, if this was a real site for your client or whatever, you would have this go to their profile. But we're just going to have it go to the site. And then this last one here inside this div, this is going to be Instagram. All right. So this is basically just the first author. If we take a look, it's going to look like this right now. Okay, we're going to add some custom CSS to kind of move the image up here, but for now it should look like that. The icons are not showing though. Did I do the wrong class? Actually, you know what? For these social icons with font awesome 5, it's FAB, I believe, not FAS. It used to always just be FA, but since they added like the premium stuff, there's different classes for the first one here. So let's try that. That should work. Yeah, there we go. So now we have our icons. All right, now for the other 3 people, what I'll do is just copy, let's see. So we'll copy the entire, this div with the column, which ends right here. So we'll grab that. And we'll add 3 more in this row. So right underneath, we'll do 1 or 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's see. This is the first one. We want to leave that. The second one here is going to be person 2. And we'll, for the name here, we'll go ahead and change this to Grace Smith. Let's see what else we want to do here. Wait, is this the one I wanted? Let me see. Yeah, so we'll do Grace Smith. Change her position. We'll say co-writer. And we want to change, we already did the image. And I think that's it. So the Facebook, all this stuff, the social icons, they can stay the same. It's basically just the name, the position, and the image that we want to change here. So let's go to the next one, and let's change it to person3.jpg. Let's change the name to John Doe, and he is the editor. And then for the last one here, we'll change it to person4.jpg. And this is Kevin Swanson, and he is the designer. All right, so let's save that, see what it looks like. Okay, so it should look like this. Now what we're going to do is head over to the CSS and do a couple things there. Style.scss, and we're going to go underneath the info header, and we're going to add the author's ID, and let's target the image that's in there, and let's add a margin top, and we're going to add a negative value. We're going to say negative 50 pixels because we want to bring it up out of the box or out of the card. And then I also want a card hover effect, so we're going to say the card that's in the authors on the hover state, we want the background to be the primary color. Remember, we defined a Sass variable for that. And then the color of the text will be white. And then I also want the icons to be white, so let's say FAB. Any FAB class within authors will be color white. Okay, so let's try it out, and now you can see that the images are above the fold here, or above the card, and when we hover over these, you can see that they turn into the primary color. Okay, so I think that's going to do it, guys. In the next video, we're going to add the contact area, and we're also going to add the footer, and we should be able to do the smooth scroll and scroll spy as well. All right, so I'll see you in the next video. All right, so now we're going to do the contact area and also the footer. Now, before we do that, I just want to show you the responsiveness of this because we haven't looked at it in a while. But you can see that on large screens, these authors are going to be 4 3-column divs, but as soon as we hit medium, it's going to go to 2 6-column divs. And I think this looks kind of cool how they like run into each other. And then obviously they're going to stack on very small screens. So if we go down, they're going to just stack, and it looks pretty nice. Okay, so pretty nice responsiveness here. So now let's add the rest of the site, which is going to be the contact and the footer. So we'll go to the index.html, go under the last section, and this will be contact. So for contact, of course, we want our section with the ID of contact. I actually also want to add class here. So for class, I want it to be BG light, and I also want a padding on the top and bottom of 5. Okay, we want our container, we want our row, and then what we're going to do here is have it on large screens. We want a 9-column div for the form, and then a 3-column div for the logo, and anything under large will stack. So let's say call LG-9, and let's see, we want to add in here an H3. We're going to say get in touch, then we'll do a paragraph with a lead class. And let's just do lorem 10, so 10 words here, just kind of a description or whatever. And then underneath that, we're going to do a form. And in this form, we're going to have a div with the class. This is going to be an input group. Remember those with the little add-ons? So I just want to have kind of a little icon with the form input. So it's going to have a class of input group, as well as I want to make it large, so it'll be input-group-LG, and then let's do a margin bottom 3. So in this input group, we want to add the class of input group prepend, whatever. So this will come before the input, and inside here we need a span with the class of input-group-text. And then in here is where we want to put whatever we want in the add-on. I want to put an icon, so I'm going to say i.fas dot fa-user, because this is going to be a name field, so we'll put an icon of a user. So we want to go underneath this div here, which is the input group prepend, and then we want to put the actual input. So this will have a class of form control, and let's give it a placeholder. Of name. So let's see what that looks like, just to make sure that we did that right. Okay, so now you can see we have a little icon with the input, so that looks pretty good. So underneath that, we're going to have the email, which is going to be pretty similar. So what I'll do is copy the whole input group. So this div will go directly underneath, paste it in, and let's change the icon. So it'll be FA. We'll do envelope open O, and we'll change the placeholder to email. Okay, and then underneath that we want the message, which will be a text area, but it's also going to be an input group. So I'm going to copy this again, go down here, paste that in, and let's change the icon to FA dash pencil dash alt. And by the way, if you want to use different icons, just go to fontawesome.com and check them all out. So this is not going to be an input, it's actually going to be a text area. So I'm going to change this to text area, and then of course that needs a closing tag. For placeholder we'll say message, and I'm also just going to add a rows attribute and set it to 5, like that. All right, and then underneath, I'm just going to save this to format it. Then underneath that last input group, we want our submit. So I'm going to say input, we'll give it a type of submit, and for value we'll just say submit, and let's make this look a little better. So we'll do btn primary, btn block to make it go all the way across, and we'll make it large. Now on the other side, so this column LG9 ends right here, so I'm going to go right below it, and we want a 3-column div. So let's say call LG-3, and then I'm also going to align the logo to the center. So we can do that by saying align dash self dash center, and then we just want to put the image in here, and the image will have a class of img fluid, so it fits in its container no matter what, and the source is going to be in the img folder, and it's called mlogo.png. So let's save that and let's check it out. And there we go. Okay, so you can see that this is aligned in the center here instead of being up here. This form looks pretty good, except the icon isn't showing for the email for some reason. Let's see, FA envelope open. Let's just try FA envelope. I get a little confused because I used Font Awesome 4 for so long, so some of these, yeah, so now that works. Just use FA envelope. So now the footer we're going to do, which is pretty easy. We'll go under the last section, add footer, and we're going to use the HTML5 footer tag with the ID of main footer. We'll add a class of py5 for padding on the top and bottom, bg primary, I want it to be the color, and then let's make the text white. Okay, and inside here we'll do same thing, container. We want to do a row, and we want to line everything, all the text to the center. And we're going to put a 6-column div here. So it'll be call MD6. And then I want to just align it to the right. So I'm going to do a class of ML auto, margin left auto. And we're going to put a paragraph with the class of lead. And in here I want the copyright. So I'm going to say copyright, and then ampersand copy semicolon. And then we want the year. Instead of hard coding it, I'm just going to put a span with the ID of year because we have that little snippet down here that takes care of that for us. So let's save it. Let's take a look. Okay, there we go. Copyright 2018. So the last thing we have to do is implement the scroll spy and the smooth scroll, because right now, I mean, we can go to about, we can go to meet the authors. We can move around here. Actually, home we can't because we need to put the home ID on the body. So let's do that stuff. Let's go back to the top here. Go to the body tag. And let's see, on this body tag here, we're going to add the ID of home. We're going to add data spy equals scroll, and we're going to add a data target of number sign main nav. Now the nav bar, we need to add an ID of main nav. And then let's make sure that these links, so this should go to home, about, authors, contact, I believe, yeah, that should be right. And then we have, let's see, so home, and then the next one will be about, then it's going to go to authors, and it's going to go to contact, which is right here. All right, good. So now what we need to do is add our JavaScript. So all the way at the bottom here, we need to first initialize scroll spy. So to do that, we'll use jQuery on the body, and we're going to say dot scroll spy, and it takes in an object with a target, and that target is going to be hash main dash nav. Okay, and sorry if you can hear that traffic. And then underneath that, we just want our block of jQuery for the smooth scrolling. So for that, instead of typing it in, because we've used it already quite a bit, I'm going to just paste it in. Okay, so let's save it. Let's give it a shot. So I'm going to go up to the top. I'll click about. Okay, it scrolls down, meet the authors, contact, home, and there we go. All right, so I think that's going to do it, guys. I think it looks pretty nice. Let's just check the responsiveness one more time. So if we go down, that looks good. Form looks good. Logo is going to get really big, but that's fine. And we have our copyright. Okay, so that's it. In the next video, we're going to jump into the Glozzom theme, which is going to be a multi-page theme. Up to this point, the first two were just basically single pages where we just go down to certain areas. But this next theme, we're actually going to create multiple HTML pages.